You will hear a number of different recordings, and you will have to answer questions on what you hear. There will be time for you to read the instructions and questions, and you will have a chance to check your work. All the recordings will be played once only. The test is in 4 parts. Write all your answers in the listening question booklet. At the end of the test, you will be given 10 minutes to transfer your answers to an answer sheet. Now turn to Part 1 on page 2 of your question booklet.
Part 1. You will hear a telephone conversation between a woman and a receptionist at a local restaurant. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 6. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 6.
Hello, White House Restaurant. How can I help you?
Good afternoon. I'm ringing to make inquiries about holding a party at your restaurant. I understand you have a private function room I could book?
We certainly have. What kind of event have you got in mind?
I've been asked to organise this for a colleague's leaving party. She's going off to head our Shanghai office and we're giving her a bit of a send-off.
Right. Well, we've got 3 rooms. The Mayfair room, that's the basement with a dance floor. Then we've also got the Blue room on the 1st floor. The last one is the garden room, which has doors leading onto the terrace. That's very nice for summer lunch parties.
That sounds best. We were thinking of an evening, and as it's summer, it'll be great to be able to go outside.
OK, but what about numbers? It's quite a big room and you don't want it for just a small party.
There are 26 of us from the office, and a few partners are coming along as well. So we're looking at 35 people, I'd say.
That sounds fine. And how do you want the room set up? You could have 2 long tables, for example.
Would it be possible to have lots of round tables, small ones? Then people can choose who they sit with. And we want them to look nice, so could we have candles on the tables? Oh, and some soft background music, not pop songs or anything.
Certainly. Now, I need to take down some of your details. First of all, can I have your name, please?
Sure, it's Lisa Elliott.
Is that with 1 or 2 L's?
It's with 2. ELLIOTT.
OK. And the name of the company?
Newman Construction.
Right. And if you give me the address, I can send you a letter of confirmation.
It's Abbey House, Bridge Street.
And that's in Dewsbury? Let me just get that down. And what about the postcode?
WF13 4HH.
OK.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 7 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 7 to 10.
Now, have you got a contact number in case I need to get hold of you?
Yes, it's 476259.
Right. And can you tell me what kind of food you had in mind?
Well, we'd prefer a cold buffet. We don't really want a hot sit-down meal.
OK. We can do several different buffet deals. Our prices per head are £15, £20 or £30 for the luxury buffet.
I think we'll go with the middle one.
I'll make a note of that then.
Oh, and I don't know if this is possible, but could you organise a bunch of flowers for us? We'd like to give them to her at the end of the meal, and it's easier not to bring them with us.
Certainly, we can do that. I'll include it in the estimate we send. Now, what about the date?
We want it for the first week in July. I think it was the 3rd. Let me check my diary. No, the 4th. Is that okay for you?
Yes, that's fine. A few weeks away still. What time do you want to start?
7 o'clock. Some people will want to come straight from work, and we expect to finish about 10.
Right. And the last thing is, we'd need to have a deposit.
OK. How much is that going to be?
We charge 25% of the total cost.
Fine. If you send me a letter confirming everything, I can let you have a company cheque by return of post.
Great. I'll get that off to you straight away.
That is the end of Part 1. You now have 1 minute to check your answers to Part 1.
Part 2. You will hear a school principal talking to a group of parents who are volunteering at a school fair. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 14. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 14.
Good evening and thank you for coming to the Kenvale School Fair Volunteers Meeting. As you know, this is the biggest fundraising event in the school year, and as usual, we're expecting lots of people to come, which is why we're starting to prepare now, 6 months before the big day. I'll begin tonight by talking about the different volunteer roles, so you can decide what you'd like to do. The entertainment coordinator position involves deciding what kinds of rides and activities will be at the fair, and making sure there's a good variety of things to do. From past experience, this role involves a lot of liaising with other helpers and the entertainers, which means that most of the work is done after office hours. We need an advertising and promotion coordinator to make sure that people hear about the fair and lots of people come. We know this is a big job, so we've decided to have a couple of people doing it to share the load. The parent who did this role last year has just been offered a job, which starts next month, so she won't be able to lend us the benefit of her experience, sadly. The technical coordinator makes sure that there is a suitable stage for the performers and that there are enough speakers and people can hear them and so on. Now, this may sound like a technical background is required, but it's not, as you don't actually have to set up or fix anything yourself. Having a car is essential, though, because in the week leading up to the event, you'll need to be able to get to the school early in the mornings and occasionally later at night. We also need a staffing coordinator. This person will be required to look after the many helpers on the day of the fair. This role has just been created based on our experience of last year's event. We found that our volunteers felt a bit overworked, and so we're hoping that this role will make things easier. It will help to reduce stress if you organise the helpers about a month before the fair.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 15 to 20. Now listen and answer questions 15 to 20.
Now, moving on to the map of the school fair, I'll point out some of the more important areas that you'll need to know about so you can help direct the visitors. You can see that we'll be using the large grounds just behind the school, and we'll set up temporary areas and pathways there. The first thing I'll show you are the fairground rides, which are always popular with the children. If you look at the map, you'll see the fair entrance at the bottom. From there, follow the main path in the direction of the river, and it's the third area on the left, the large rectangular area. The entertainment stage is a big feature of the fair, and this is where everyone will be able to see all the performers. To find this, go straight along the main path until you get to the river. Turn right and follow the path to the end, and there it is. There's not much shade here, so we should remind parents to bring hats for their children. If anyone wants a cold drink or a snack, then they'll ask you where the cafe is. Originally, we were going to put it opposite the toilets, but we've decided to put it near the river to take advantage of the views and breezes. You can see it on the map. It's a circular area surrounded by trees near the playground. The first aid tent is always an important part of the fair. We wanted to put that in an area that was easily accessible and a bit separated from the other attractions, but near the entrance. If you look at the map, you'll see it south of the toilets, not far from the school fence line. The market stalls are where visitors will be able to pick up a bargain or some homemade produce. Last year, these were located just south of the meeting area, but the stall holders complained that it was too exposed and hot. So, this year, we've moved them to the north of the meeting area. Lots of good shelter provided by the trees here. Of course, there'll be the ever-popular pony rides. To reach these, direct visitors to follow the main path from the entrance until they reach the L-shaped area on the left next to the playground. Now, as I was saying...
That is the end of Part 2. You now have 30 seconds to check your answers to Part 2.
Section 3. You will hear part of a discussion between two students, Liz from New Zealand and Scott from the UK, who are working on a presentation about a key historical site in New Zealand. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 24 on page 5. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 24.
Hi, Scott. Here are my notes.
Let's sort this presentation out then. The first thing I found out about Stone Point is it's an extinct volcanic cone. You probably know that already, being a New Zealander.
Yes, and there are 2 other cones nearby, which also overlook the harbour.
Right.
Yeah, the first settlers of New Zealand, the Maori, sailed to New Zealand thousands of years after these volcanoes erupted. I think the tutor allocated us this topic, though, because of Stone Point's significant historical role. It's been used by both Maori and European settlers as a place to shelter from attack or launch an attack for centuries.
Yeah, and the fact it was an ideal place for building a village, it would have been quite a sheltered spot.
I suppose the Maori settled there because they thought the volcanic soil would help their crops grow.
Well, they would have realised the benefits of the soil after a few good harvests, but initially the fishing opportunities would have been the attraction.
You're right.
Actually, I also read that Maori regard Stone Point as taonga. I believe that means a treasured thing.
Wow, your Maori vocabulary is improving, Scott. We do have to deal with Stone Point's cultural value for Maori. That's still part of its historical significance. But we need to keep most Maori terminology out of the presentation. Otherwise, a lot of the international students won't be able to follow us.
That's a shame. I'm sure they'd be interested. I mean, I am. But yeah, we wouldn't be able to explain it in the time allowed, so I guess we have to stick to English. Anyway, European migrants turned Stone Point into a lookout point for ships. Then it became a fort, an army base in the late 1880s, and then during the World Wars the fort was modernised again.
It's also been a public park sometimes.
I'd prefer to devote more of the presentation to the military use of Stone Point. There are some great websites about the engines they installed.
Sorry, I wouldn't go into the technical side if I were you. If you start describing mechanical stuff, people will switch off. I think it's more interesting to look at the impact Stone Point had on the people's lives at the time. I mean, for example, there were about 25 years when they used local prisoners to build the tunnels and the underground rooms. They lived there too.
Yeah, I guess, if we can find some first-hand accounts.
Before you hear the rest of the discussion, you have some time to look at questions 25 to 30 on page 6. Now listen and answer questions 25 to 30.
Okay, so let's make a checklist of things to do. For the early Maori inhabitation section, we have to look at the material we've used again and make sure we know who the writers were and when they wrote it.
Yes, that needs work. And for the part about Stone Point being used as a lookout point, I'm sure we can locate some drawings of how Stone Point looked then and the kind of ships coming in.
Nice. And what else? We haven't got a lot of detail for the reconstruction of the fort. We should add some more information about what it was the prisoners were adding to it.
OK, I'll do that bit too.
So I'll deal with the section regarding the modernisation that happened in the 1930s and 40s. I mean, that's a bit where we have the most visible evidence of historic buildings. I'll ring the Department of Conservation and see if they'll agree to let me film the site. Maybe allow me access to some of the tunnels the public don't see.
OK. For the 1950s onwards, could you also arrange a meeting with someone from the Department of Conservation to ask them about their restoration work?
I could try. Oh, and just about its use as a public park today. Where is the boundary exactly? Does it go all the way to the beach?
Not sure. I'll check that out.
Great. I suppose it would finish off the presentation nicely if we explained the future plans for the site.
That is the end of section 3. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 4 on page 7.
Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
In today's lecture, I want to take a look into one of the world's most exciting and dangerous traditional activities. Who doesn't like a little excitement? When we think of extreme sports, what normally comes to mind? Skydiving, hang gliding, bungee jumping? All three are definitely very extreme. But did you know that bungee jumping, in particular, actually has been adapted from an ancient activity called land diving? That is performed by local people in Vanuatu, an island in the South Pacific. Land diving has been performed for centuries by local men in southern Vanuatu. Women are generally forbidden from performing the ritual. The jump is an integral part of the community, and so this is one reason foreigners cannot participate. The ritual serves several purposes. Firstly, villagers view land diving as a test, since only the strong are given the opportunity to jump. A second purpose of the dive is that it serves as a rite of passage for boys on the verge of adulthood. A boy will jump in the presence of his mother and elders as a means to show community support. The third, and essentially most important purpose of land diving, is to ensure a good harvest. The islanders believe a successful jump can therefore help keep the village healthy and well-fed. A special tower is built for the land divers to jump from. It normally takes between 20 and 30 local men around 5 weeks to construct. The men clear an area for the dive site and remove rocks from the soil, which will be continually tilled to remain soft up until the day of the jump. The tower can reach heights of 30 meters. Extending about 2 meters from the front of the tower, 4 or 5 platforms are constructed. The lowest one is around 10 meters, and the highest is near the top. Experienced divers go to the top of the tower first, while those who are inexperienced jump from lower down. Because of all the dangers associated with land diving, the men must engage in certain traditional rituals before being allowed to jump. The day before the ceremony, all men participating in the jump will undergo a formal wash. Afterwards, a special kind of oil made from coconuts is used to anoint their bodies for this cultural event. And then they decorate themselves with a boar tusk around their neck. On the day of the jump, all the villagers sing and dance to show emotional support for the divers. Once the diver is on the tower, 2 tough vine stems, which have been carefully selected by a village elder according to the diver's weight and height, are fixed around his ankles. It is of the utmost importance to select vines which are flexible. Vines which are too dry can snap easily. Short vines can cause a crash into the tower, while long vines may cause the diver to hit the ground too hard. When the diver is ready, he will cross his arms over his chest so as to prevent any injuries to his arms, and then tuck his head in so that when he jumps, his shoulders will just lightly make contact with the ground. They can reach speeds of up to 72 kilometers per hour. Immediately after the dive, villagers rush to the diver to attend to him because injuries are not uncommon. It is also important to note that any potential divers who decide against it are not viewed as lacking courage. Nowadays, land diving has become a way to attract tourism to Vanuatu. But in order to maintain the island's cultural integrity, the number of outsiders allowed to view the ceremony is strictly regulated by a council formed of the chiefs of the island. Also, as of 2006, filming of the ritual by outsiders for profitable purposes has been banned. Now, let's watch a short clip of the ritual.
That is the end of Part 4. You now have 1 minute to check your answers to Part 4. That is the end of the listening test. You now have 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the listening answer sheet.